All right, the Lucknow Super Giants make it 2 out of 2 at home on two very contrasting surfaces at the Ekana Stadium, which is hosting IPL cricket for the first time. It'll make for quite a few points of discussion, from the Sunrisers Hyderabad, their decision to bat at the toss, the choice of their first 11, the choice of their impact sub and how they batted overall. But for KL Rahul's side, they moved top in the early stages of the IPL on the points table. We look back at that game. That happens to be, I think, the earliest finish we've had, and yet if you sat through it, it felt like an eternity. This is ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout with Deep Dasgupta and Tom Moody. Gentlemen, that was not an advertisement for cricket, is it fair to say, Tom? For IPL cricket, for T20 cricket?
Yeah, look, that one was a painful exercise for us all, and for the players. You know, I think that, you know, that they don't particularly want to be playing on surfaces like that. And I'm not saying that Sunrisers did themselves any favours with the bat. You know, they were probably, I think 150 was probably the total they needed to get to. And I think when they review it with a clear mind, I think they'll sort of work out, you know, where they fell short and why they didn't get 150. If they got 150, then they're in the contest. At 121, you're not in the game.
So what came in the way of them getting to 150 with the bat? Let's go to Sunrisers with the bat.
Right. I thought the assessing part of the pitch, and you could see it right through the game, starting from their batting 11 that they picked, then the substitute that they picked, as in the impact player that they picked, to the way they started. If you've read that pitch correctly, you'd say, okay, this definitely is not a 180 pitch. Right? Last time around they got 190, but this is a different pitch. This does not look like it. Looks like a 160. Let's assess for first 2-3 overs. And I think, and they did well, in fact. You know, in the first 6 they did well. They got 45 for 1, if I'm not wrong. So I think till that point it was fine. But then, personally, I would have liked to have seen a left-hander when you know it's going to turn. And we were on that matchcast thing, and I thought, you know, Washington Sundar being the only left-hander, maybe they could have just got Washington Sundar to bat a little higher and kind of break that momentum that they had created. I mean, they bowled well and everything else. Just push in someone like Washington Sundar and kind of play your move and then see what the opposition's can do for that.
Right, point by point, tell me, Tom, things that you would have done differently if you were the Sunrisers today in the first half. I know you love this question.
That's a ridiculous question. I can't give you point by point.
Okay. Well, pick out the points that you think
but
did help themselves.
I think Deep makes a good point about Washington Sundar. But the thing that screams out to me when you were making that point is that they left the auction table knowing that they had a team full of right-handers. They released a left-hander in Nicholas Pooran, who hit the winning run, and they bought someone that was 30% more expensive, who's a right-hander, similar sort of impact player. They left out Abhishek Sharma, a left-hander. So there's a lot of things to unpack. So when they're going to play on surfaces like that, when there is that tendency where you can get exposed by being very one-dimensional on slow-turning tracks, you're a sitting duck.
Shall we credit Lucknow for the choice of team they picked? It seemed like they had the horses for today's course.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, again, going back to the point that Tom made about auction, look at that squad. Look at
Lucknow,
Lucknow I'm talking about. I mean, they've ticked almost every box that you can think of, including backups. Right? I mean, they've got, I mean, just forget the impact play. Even if they did not have the impact player, they still are so good, that playing 11, whether it's batting or bowling. So I think that, I mean, they've done a fabulous job last season in that big auction, picking up that side. And then even today, I think they've read the conditions perfectly. I think obviously they got what they wanted from the curator as well. I think they knew what they were getting. And planned it beautifully.
13 overs of spin today, and yet we saw an impact sub from Hyderabad. When they got to 120, you thought, oh, maybe Samaj given them something. You never know here. But they got on Farooqi and not the extra spin option of Markande. And they also didn't bowl Adil Rashid's third over until the game was effectively done. Could they have helped their cause any better in the second innings, Tom?
Look, I personally thought that was the right impact player. Faruqi's a very clever bowler, and he's got great changes of pace. So on those slower surfaces, he can be a real handful. And what he can do is he can steal a couple of wickets in the power play. Okay, he didn't do it tonight, but he can take wickets. He's got a record.
He bowled very well today.
He can take wickets in the power play, but plus he's got those great cutters. So I thought that was the right move. They had enough spin. You know, they had Adil Rashid, they had Washington Sundar, they had Markram, and there was one other, wasn't there? Abdul Samad, who can bowl some part-time leg break. So, and they didn't use all their resources of spin, so that wasn't the problem.
So, talking about impact play, now I'm just kind of thinking about it. That middle phase in their batting innings, when Washington Sundar and Rahul Tripathi were batting, they got, 39 runs of 9 overs. So, would there be a case of saying, you know what, let's not worry about the bowling side. Yeah. Let's try and get to 140, 150. Yeah. And because 120, it's never going to be enough, no matter what you do. Yeah. Right? So, why not just play all our cards right now, go all in, and get someone in like a Klaasen or someone.
And Klaasen was padded up.
Yeah, or Marco Johansson or whoever, and try and get to 145 rather than being safe and say, okay, 120, let's see, and we might get lucky.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, but I think they were stuck. They clearly were thinking that way. And they probably thought that, well, let's go with Washington, a left-hander, and if he doesn't last, we'll press the button. But he did last for a period of time, so that card nearly, they lost the value of that card, playing that card. But that was definitely in their thoughts. But, you know, I think that they trusted and backed the left-hander in Washington to do the job to get them to 140, 150. But, yeah, look, it's easy for us to sit back here now and say Klaasen would have been, you know, probably the perfect person, but he might have got out first ball like Markram did.
All right. Yeah, I think there's plenty to discuss here, but we'll give Harry Brook and Aiden Markram a few more innings before we come down on them. It's Markram's first. Just have a chat, though, on what the Ekana Stadium can offer us in this IPL. You were at the last game, where they got 193 on what we now know is a red soil surface. Today is a black soil surface, where there's no way anyone's getting to 190. Now, is this possibly the way Lucknow will go about it? They'll pick and choose what surface depending on oppositions.
Yeah, they have that option and the luxury to do that. There are quite a few actually venues in India which have that. In fact, Ahmedabad has 3 different kinds of surfaces. You've got red, you've got black, and a mix of red and black. So the center strip in Ahmedabad is mixture of red and black. They've experimented on that and that's been successful. So quite a few other venues also have that option, and obviously that's a luxury that they have. And also, having said that, they have the squad to kind of exploit that luxury as well.
Would you call this an absolutely fair advantage that you must cash in on if you're the home side, assuming, of course, that they are picking and choosing surfaces and teams depending on oppositions?
I think if the soil's there and you're not trucking it in the day before the game, you play to your advantage. It's your home venue. You know, they would have known that Wood was potentially, you know, a little unwell, you know, 24, 48 hours ago. And that would have confirmed which surface, and I'm sure they probably would have had a red and a black soil sort of prepared, and it was an easy decision. So if you've got those options, look, it's absolutely fine.
All right, fair enough. We think we'll get to see a little more of this from Lucknow. So watch out, teams that go to Lucknow, and carry everybody with you, the entire squad. Not that you wouldn't anyway, but you need to see what surface the hosts are offering you, and then perhaps you could take a call on how to go about it. Lucknow have won. They're top of the table. So big thank you to Dasgupta and Tom Moody. That's all, pretty much. I have nothing more to ask you. I'll think of something by the time the next game for these two teams comes on. For now, that's it. That's done. We're done. This was the ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Download our mobile app. If you want to read any more from this game that the scorecard doesn't tell you and our analysis doesn't throw light upon. But we do hope to have your company for what should be a classic double header over the weekend. We've got Guwahati, which has lots of runs. We're sending Deep there to make sure they don't use any black soil surfaces. He'll be off there to Guwahati. And then it's the Wankhede Stadium for Mumbai Chennai. Don't expect any slow surfaces there. So Mosik sitting on Saturday. See you then. Good night.